Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Your Spiritual Journey. This is Dr. Bob, and this is the space and the place where we talk about things important to your soul. And as always, we ask that you like us, maybe subscribe, and support us on Patreon if you can. Just by way of comment, those of you who are watching on YouTube, I just had surgery on my nose. So my wife said I should wear a clown nose over this so it looks very intentional. Anyway, the surgery went fine, but the bandages are still there. So that's what you're seeing. So today's guest, if you've been following us, was actually on episode 45 back in 2023. Seems so long ago now. But he was such a great guest, and I started a book study group of his book, I Am. And Howard Falco was so gracious that he sat in on our very first meeting for an hour and a half and talked about his book and answered questions about his book before we jumped into a year-long study with his book, I Am. And now he's come out with another book, and I just couldn't wait to get him on the show again. In fact, I so much couldn't wait that I didn't even wait for the book to arrive. So there's a mock-up of it here. But we're going to be talking to Howard about what's happened since we last saw him and what this book is all about. And I know that in the last interview on episode 45, he talked about working on this book, and he expected it to be out last year in 2024. But we've had to wait a little longer for it, but it's out now. So Howard, I'm first just going to say to the audience, if you want the down and dirty on Howard, listen to episode 45. I'm not going to ask him to go through that whole experience again and talk about all of his spiritual journey. But I would like you, Howard, to reiterate that one experience that you had that really kind of blew your mind and opened up everything to you that changed your life entirely. And if you could just give us a little bit of that experience again to remind the audience of
Sure.
how you got to where you are now, and then fill us in on what's happened since we last spoke, okay?
Sounds great. So the short to medium story is I've always been a seeker and curious, very, very curious. My mother said the minute I was born, I was running and looking and exploring, and she couldn't keep up with me. This culminated in an experience the first time I went on a camping trip away from the city lights, being born and raised in the Chicago suburbs. My experience there, the first time that I looked up and saw what I saw above my head in the sky in terms of the breathtaking amount of stars, shook me to my core in the best of ways and created this existential search for answers and understanding and bewilderment that sits above our head every night, and yet we don't have more insight onto what we're doing here, who we are, what the purpose is, etc. And I know so many saints and philosophers and poets and mystics and scientists, etc., religious teachers have sought and searched for these understandings, but I went on my own search. And this culminated, I mean, I went into regular life. My parents got divorced in my mid-teens. I left Chicago to go to school out west, to go to college, got a degree in finance and marketing. And so got married, had two kids. So I was going through a normal life, but still desperately searching for this insight on the inside and in my mind. And this culminated in an unbelievably humbling experience in my mid 30s where the dam broke, so to speak, where I finally had let go of the beliefs that I was holding onto enough to allow wisdom a space to enter my mind. And when that first spring of wisdom started in the space that I had opened up through this deep yearning and asking for insight, it broke completely to where there was so much wisdom pouring in. I literally got on my knees and covered my head in a state of complete awe and reverence and humility. And I knew that my life changed in that moment. This was in December of 2002, and that I was going to be dedicated to just being a good servant of this understanding and awareness and put it out in the discourse for those that were looking for a different angle on insight, wisdom, life, divinity. And so I left my job in the finance industry and I went out and I wrote I Am, the books that sits in front of you, and not having had anything published before, like any first time author, I wrote it, and serendipity got me to an agent, to a publisher, and then the ability to go out and teach and speak the insights in I Am that I came to know through my understanding of how life works with each one of us, how divinity connects with us, how our thoughts and feelings affect our lives and our outcomes, and how much power is truly, how much creative power is truly in us. So I put the book out, and there was a brief moment where I thought, okay, do I shave my head, put a robe on, change my name? But I was so entrenched in loving my life with my kids and coaching club baseball, and I thought, why do I have to do that? Why can't I just bring this to a wider audience if they would receive it? And so I asked the universe, okay, how do I put this out in the widest way? And the miracle that happened after that is as soon as I Am was out, I started getting calls from athletes that said, hey, I read your book, I Am, and this is how it changed how I looked at myself and hence my results. Do you work with athletes? And I was already working with so many people in so many different areas of life, relationships, spiritual path, anxiety, depression, that this was really an easy transition for me to work in as well, growing up and having played all sports. So I started working with athletes. We had some miraculous things happen, some amazing experiences with individuals. I was fortunate and blessed to have the ability to coach at the professional and collegiate level and high school level. And so after I Am being out for over 10 years and my second book, Time in a Bottle, being out for 6 or 7 years, I decided I was ready to write a third book and take all the work since I had come to this understanding and how it's affected so many lives and put it into a step-by-step format for the supreme state of mind, for the invincible state of mind. And that's how I came to write Invincible, and that's what Invincible is about. All this work synthesized into a step-by-step format and examples from so many who've experienced different aspects of this work and how it's affected their mind, their experience of life, and their results.
Okay. That sounds like a terrific summation.
That's a short story anyways.
Yeah. So when last we talked, you had pretty much wrapped up the Guru podcast, and we talked about that whole guru situation, that what you were trying to get across was that each one of us is really our own guru, and that you weren't purporting to be a guru, and you didn't want to be a guru, that you wanted to point people in the direction of, this is internal, this is your work to do, and the answers are inside of you. So that's the best place to look. So as you wrap that up, you were talking about, okay, once Invincible comes out, you were going to start a new podcast. So has that happened, and what's going on with that?
So I'm in the process of creating it right now. We're actually converting all the episodes from the previous podcast into the new podcast, which is going to be called The Invincible Mind. And it's going to be a podcast espousing these insights and understandings in each episode, either from myself or with other guests that have also experienced it and achieved certain things in life. So, in the process of putting that together right now, it's been writing and editing and getting this ready to be birthed into the world has been an all consuming 3 to 4 years. So, now my brain is sort of switching to the podcast and then the teaching that I'll be doing in the world.
Okay, so do you have a release date in mind as to when this is going to hit the air?
I'm hoping before the book is published, the book will be published on March 25th. So I'm hoping to have the podcast out sometime before then, probably in the next month or so.
All right. So the airing of this episode will pretty much coincide with what you're looking at. Because
or precede it. I'll be putting this out everywhere. So.
Okay. The rest of the title of Invincible is the mindset of infinite potential and the secret to inevitable success. That's quite a mouthful. The mindset of infinite potential. So how do we get there? I realize your book's got a step-by-step approach, I guess. So is that the whole point, that will get us to the mindset of this infinite potential?
That is the intention of the book, to open the minds of the readers to see more of what is available to them to create, along with more of what they are worthy and capable of creating. So it's both. The step one in the book is about the idea of accepting the truth of infinite possibility and infinite potential that exists every single moment of every day, and why that is true. If you ask people, do you believe in infinite possibility? Most people will say yes. But if you ask them if you believe that they are worthy of experiencing that infinite possibility, that's when there's a hesitation. And what I'm trying to do is remove that hesitation for them by showing them the truth of what they're worth and what they're capable of, and how life is always trying to get that message and that connection to you of your value and your worthiness, whether it's to conquer the world, in business or sports, or whether it's just to walk around every day with an incredible sense of peace and harmony, knowing that your worth is not in doubt, your survival is not in doubt, and that life is always here to support you.
So that can be quite a difficult sell to people who have been raised by parents or by grandparents and gotten the message that you are not worthy, or here's a list of all the things that aren't available to you or you can't do just based on the culture or the color of your skin or your financial status. So I guess I came from an upbringing of you can do anything you want to do. All you have to do is set your mind to it. So I grew up that way with that concept in mind, that infinite possibility. But I know that very few people were given that kind of a gift from their parents and their environment. So how do you I don't know, flick that switch for somebody or help them flick the switch? You can't do it for them. They have to do it, right?
No, correct. But the first step was putting the work out, right? Making sure that it's available to them, that because they know something is greater in them, or they're capable of more, or they're tired of the thoughts that drain them of energy and make them feel down and depressed. And so this is for all of those people, and I hope it reaches every single one of them. But once they have the book and they start to contemplate, then it's my job as the author to make sure that I guide them through the process and nurture them into this state that helps them shatter any limitation or any of the negative ideas based on what they say they want to experience. It's very clear in the introduction that this is the journey this book is going to take you on. This is where it's going to lead you. And if this is something you're interested in or you want, here are the steps and the way the book is structured to get you there. So it's an invitation to them to go down this path of understanding and be graced with the same incredible miracle I was graced with in terms of understanding and wisdom. And that's what I'm doing with the book, is helping them to see that the way that their thoughts and ideas were formed, some may serve them, but some may not as it relates to their deepest desires. Here's how you know the difference. Here's how you challenge some of those thoughts. Here's an opposite thought to a limiting belief about your value or your worth, and why it's the truth. Why the fact that you matter is the truth. Why life is here to support you is the truth. Why your thoughts and the contextualization of the energy that you put out, or the style and the scope and the frequency of the energy that you put out in the world, has an impact on what manifests and comes together for you, what you create, and how you can take more conscious control over it. So it doesn't just tell you these things. It offers the deep mechanics of why it's true. And I think it's that why that works to silence the ego. Because the ego will use anything it can to prevent change until it has to submit to truth. Truth is its kryptonite, so to speak. So that's what the book is. That's how it does it.
I re-listened to episode 45 to refresh my memory on our last discussion. And the ego was a big part of that, as we talked about whether your ego was your enemy or your friend or neutral, or, how the ego fits into this picture. And there's, I guess part of the zeitgeist right now that we're in terms of the culture and some of the chaos that's happening right now, politically, economically, socially, even our financial institutions. It seems like there's a disruptive force happening that's going to change the way that the world works. And to my mind, anything that helps any individual navigate that transition period from where we are now to where we're going to end up is of utmost value to every person on this planet. So I guess as I look at the possibilities of what you're talking about in your book and how it could help people take back their power, I guess, for another word, because so many people give up their power and their possibilities. And if they can take that back and say, okay, I'm responsible for my life, doesn't matter what's going on out there. In here is my domain. So what I do with that domain is up to me. So, and that I don't know, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but that seems to be something that you're offering, empowerment. Does that sound right?
Yes, it's offering that their thoughts, their feelings, and what they believe in their heart to be true for themselves has value. And just because someone else tells them something or says something doesn't mean that they can't trust their own mind and thoughts when it comes to being a good human being, or it comes to their own happiness, or it comes to their own sense of worth. And so, regardless of what's going on in the world around them, they can tap into that intuition and that wisdom within themselves to direct the fate of their own life and the fate of their own experience. They don't have to be dragged into the negativity and the drama and the chaos and the disruption that goes on around them. And I'm not saying that they have to be happy with it, or condone it, but they have the supreme authority over their own mindset and how they experience their life. And that has a great impact, ironically, on what happens for them. And so, yes, it is giving people back their power of discernment, their power of self-acceptance. But that takes some work sometimes based on the layers or the beliefs that have been in there telling them the opposite for so many years, which is why they just listen to what people that they thought had power or influence or knowledge say. And the older I get, the more I realized that people that I gave credit to for knowing or expressing truth or what works in life has not always been the case. I've often given away too much power to other individuals throughout my life. And so I want to help people do this. Not that other people have been great guides. There have been a lot of people that have offered great insight and great knowledge and have known stuff, but there's also been a lot that haven't, that I thought did. And we have our own internal truth guidance system within us. And when we have more faith and trust in that, then we are able to express great discernment, which serves us.
So this step-by-step guide is part of that, helping a person find that guidance if they're not used to listening to it and they're not sure where it comes from, and then how to discern if that guidance is coming from where. I mean, because
so if it works in terms of what, moving you closer to what you want, if it works in terms of making your mind feel better about who you are, the guidance, if the feeling I'm not worthy is creating suffering in your mind, and the feeling that I am worthy feels a little better, as uncomfortable as it can feel at first, probably lean towards what helps you to feel better about life. But the step-by-step process is a step-by-step process of a construction of a consciousness that brings you to that state of empowerment, intuition, and discernment. So, for example, it starts, the very first step in the book is realizing your infinite potential. So you can't create or think about creating if you don't see that as a possibility. If you don't see that this is an infinitely creative universe and always has been. And that's how it's connecting with you, because you are a part of this infinitely creative universe. So that's what step one goes into in great detail, is how your mindset affects that potential, that field of potential, and can limit you or can expand the nature of who you are and help you get to where you want to go. Part two is about understanding your identity and how it's been created to this point, which it helps explain every single thing you've experienced to a certain degree. And you see that it's all been based on an identity that's been formed before you were born, through your genetics, through your nurturing, and through your own experiences. And it gave you this idea of who you were that you didn't even know, because it was just subconscious and you were just acting out of it. But this is the moment of consciousness that we're talking about right now, the point of awakening, to where you go, wow, I see how this identity's guided my life. Step 3 shows you how that identity is working real time through the mechanism called your ego. And how the ego is using that identity to search and find the validation of that identity. And how by being aware of that, you can start to be a witness to your own ego, and you can start to redirect slowly, redirect behaviors, actions, responses, thoughts that begins to change your identity, the neuroplasticity of your brain, the way that you think and process information, and hence create a new reality. And so as you're learning this process and you have these 3 understandings, the only thing that can stop you from everything you want are limiting beliefs. And so step 4 comes in and tells you how to dismantle self-limiting beliefs, especially as it relates to what you're trying to create. So it takes you through that process. So now you've got it all. You've got the understanding of your identity. You've got the understanding of how your ego works. You know that you're in a world of creation where every moment you're either creating or destroying. And that helps you decide where you want to put the weight of your energy and your thoughts and your responses to life. And then you get into part 2 of the book, which is called Breakthrough, after part 1, which is self-awareness. And in Breakthrough, you learn how to liberate your soul to new possibilities. And you learn about self-realization, self-acceptance, self-love, these key tenets of people that live happy, fulfilling, successful lives. And yes, those people do exist. A lot of times they're under the radar. We don't hear about them, but they do exist. And then in step 6, once you realize all this, then you're ready to truly harness the power of I am and take control and own the narrative of your life going forward. And you learn how to use that power in declaring a new you and beginning to trust that uncomfortable field of stepping into it. And so that's step 6. And then you go to the last part of the book, which is called Next Level Mindfulness. And we get to step 7, which is mastering challenges and negativity. And why I put this in there is because once you gain this great power and you see your unlimited self and you feel more of your worth and your value and you respect and love and honor yourself more and you demonstrate this new version, the world is still going to be the world. And it's still going to come with all its negativity and traps and everything to try and sidetrack you and pull you into it. Because one thing darkness does not like is light. It does not want to reflect on its own darkness. And so it will work to try and mitigate or limit your light. And so step 7 is about being prepared for it. So you have a game plan when it shows up and you know how to master it when it shows up in your life seamlessly because you're ahead of it. That's the power of awareness, is being prepared and being ready. Not that you're concluding that it's going to happen, but just that you know that it's a possibility and you're ready to deal with it. All the inputs in the world, from media to social media to radio to people in your life to family members, it can come from anywhere. And then once you know how to deal with that and can walk in a state of grace, then you're in the last step of the book, which is, living from the invincible state of mind and really knowing how to deal with a grace-filled mindset every day and what that means in terms of everything you're looking to experience in life. And so it's a process. It's an 8-step process, but each step is critical in building that consciousness to be more empowered, to direct your life as you desire it to go. Because there is a formula, and my life and work with thousands of people has shown me that this is it.
Yeah. Well, as the founder of the 8 Wisdom Foundation, and you've got these 8 steps in your book, what's the relationship, if any, between those 2 8s?
Well, the Eight Wisdom Foundation is a little bit of a coy messaging. Um, it's not really the number eight. The eight represents a symbol in the Eight Wisdom Foundation. So it's really the Infinite Wisdom Foundation,
Okay.
titled as the Eight Wisdom Foundation. But eight is really being used not as a number, but as a symbol for infinity and for endless wisdom. So that's how I came up with that for the Eight Wisdom Foundation. The eight steps just happen to be a serendipitous match. So I guess I've landed on that number eight quite a bit in this book. But
Okay.
I'm not fearful of infinity. I have embraced infinity and am just awed by it.
Okay. So we're just talking synchronicity here, right? Yeah.
Yeah, just synchronicity.
Okay. Well, you you talk about using this process to get to where you want to go. And I think there are a lot of people who really aren't sure where that is. And is there some wisdom in there about figuring out where it is you want to go?
Yeah, so that's a great question and a very appropriate one. I think, I believe that most people are confused on where they want to go and what they want to do because they haven't really realized the fullness of who they are and haven't allowed that sense of comfort with their true authentic self to be embraced because they think they have to be somebody else to get love in the world or to please their parents or their spouse or significant other or their children, etc. And so they play a role that they think they need to survive. I believe as you go through the book and you realize the truth of who you are and that you can choose whatever you want to be in this world, that's free will. That their true, authentic idea of what they want to experience will come forth, will be the next step in that process. But they have to have the freedom to be who they are comfortable with being and allow that version of themselves to surface before they know where they want to put that energy. So one comes first, the realization of your true self, and then the meaning and purpose of who you want to be and what you want to do comes with it, comes after that.
Yeah.
But I think most people are confused because they're operating from a misunderstanding of who they are. And they think they should do this. They need to be in this career, or they need to do this for financial reasons, or they need to do this because they have responsibilities, which is all partially true. But the journey of self-awareness really opens up more of the authenticity of what their soul's craving.
There are certain people in the spiritual world who are very concerned, well, not only in the spiritual world, I guess, in the world period, who are concerned about the future of humanity because of the role that technology is beginning to play through AI, through putting chips in people's heads to help their neural pathways open up and be able to function better, and the implications of, yes, there's a positive aspect to this technology, but there's also the potential for very negative things to happen for humanity. In fact, Greg Braden has just recently come out with a book, Pure Human, for us to try to be able to distinguish what it means to be human versus giving up those pieces of our humanity to technology. And I just wondered if you've dealt with that, not necessarily in this book, but in your thoughts and in your mind, and if you have any thoughts on that, I guess, in terms of where we're headed and your own trepidations about where that might be.
Well, there's no doubt that technology is speeding up and information is coming in faster and faster and more condensed and more condensed. But there's always been change throughout humanity in terms of the evolution of how information and how we experience life happens. I think my only comment on it is that as long as you can keep the authority over your own mind and remember that nothing can take the place of human to human interaction in terms of ultimate fulfillment and the experience of life. So the virtual world is going to continue to explode and people are going to get more virtual in everything that they do. But it only puts more of a premium on human to human interaction and connection. And so I like to look at it like it's going to enhance life. It's going to help make life easier for people. It's going to help us with our health or our state of minds or the ability to know how to survive and work our way through the world. And yes, there'll be times when power and control and dominance and negativity and chaos reign. It's happened throughout humanity. But I think for each individual, it even puts more of a premium on mastering their own mind so they can A, deal with that, and B, decide who they want to be to influence the way they want the world to go. So kind of a roundabout answer to kind of a little bit of a vague question in terms of just the idea of technology, but I guess I have ultimate faith in life itself, that it knows better than I what it's doing. And I put my trust and faith in that because I'm not concerned about my mortality. I'm concerned about the richness of my experience as an observer and my contribution to the consciousness. Not so much my physical, even though I'm all for values that enhance that and keep less suffering in people and more beautiful experiences of life and the body and et cetera. But this is a small blip on the radar of an infinite experience. And I believe life is infinite. And so I'm going to choose to keep it on faith, on love, on trust, and have an impact as much as I can that way. While I watch the rise and fall of fear and domination around us and all the chaos that comes from that, which has been pretty heavy lately.
Right. Okay.
So I'm looking at AI as a positive thing.
Yeah. So I am curious because back in 2002 you had this awakening experience that really was almost like a huge download of wisdom or whatever you want to call it. Have you had any subsequent experiences, maybe not on that scale, but where you feel like you're still in some kind of constant communication with a higher power?
So when that doorway opened, I remember thinking, wow, how do I protect that doorway always staying open? Because the worst thing would be is if it closed after this, because this is so unbelievable. And I quickly realized that the best pathway to keep that door open to eternal wisdom is humility. And I've kind of gone overboard, I think, on that over the years, and maybe being a little too quiet in a noisy world where more of this work, I believe, will help humanity. And I needed to be better about being out there a little bit more. So I've kind of erred to almost the too humble side, but now I'm kind of like, okay, I trust myself and what I'm doing, and I can be a little more loud and proud about this incredible work. But the initial emotional and physical and energetic feeling that occurred on that volcanic eruption of wisdom has subsided over time as it's normalized. Because at first it was just like, wow. And I was in this aura and this state of felt like you were floating and walking on air. And that lasted for years. And there are times when I feel a connection that shoots goosebumps through my entire body, or I hear a moving piece of music or see a great piece of art or read a great quote that just lights me up. But that doorway, Bob, has always stayed open. And I don't even have words because I'm just humbled beyond words about it. But no, the doorway has stayed open. And but I do feel like a hungry traveler who opened a door to a room where it had one of those Knights of the Round Table long tables of food on it that you could eat for lifetimes from the wisdom. Yeah. So I'm very satiated with what's come in, and my goal now is just to simply teach it. But if I do have a question, I can put it out in my mind and just be present and mindful and wait for the insight to drop in. So, and that's what I'm trying to tell people they have access to, or offer them that they have access to that wisdom, to that insight. Yeah. So that's how the experience has been for me.
Okay. That's good to know. I get the humility message because I've gotten that message myself, and I'm nowhere near where you are spiritually in terms of what you've experienced and what you have to offer, but it is kind of a tricky concept to work with, you know.
It can be, but this river of wisdom is right here. It's right here, and tapping into it is simply a matter of quieting the mind and thoughts and trusting what enters your mind before you tried to think.
Yeah.
But just came in. That's really the key.
Yeah, the approach that I take with it now is that nothing comes from me alone. That the I am is a team. That we are co-creators. Whatever, quote, we create, we're not creating it alone. We're creating it with a lot of help. And we are just one piece of that creation. And
that's correct.
That's what keeps.
But a vital,
yeah,
important, critical piece of that creation. You are the eternal observer. You are the creator of your experience, and that puts you in the number one spot.
Yeah.
And it's the same for everybody else. That's the love you have from this universe. How can you be served today by life?
Yeah.
Because life just wants to serve. That's the unbelievable beauty of it.
Well, this has been great. I really loved the opportunity to have you on a second time. Can't wait for your next. Well, I know your next project is really getting this podcast off the ground and seeing where that goes.
Let me get this out. Yes.
Yeah.
But this is it right now. It's like I can only imagine when women give birth. When are you having your next child? And it's like, wait a minute, let me raise and nurture. Give me a few minutes here.
All right, I won't even ask what's next. I'll let you focus on what's right in front of you, because that's the mindfulness thing to do, right?
Yes, exactly. And I appreciate so much, Bob.
Yeah,
but I appreciate your words more than you know. I thank you so much for having me on, and another unbelievably great discussion with you. I thoroughly enjoy it.
Well, there's one more opportunity you have here, and that is, I always wrap up, as you know, with allowing you to leave the audience with a few words of wisdom. So I know you have a lot, so try to keep it small. Uh, but what would you like to leave the audience with?
Just to tell them to never question your value and how much you matter and how much what you desire in the deepest part of your mind in terms of the experience, the love, the joy that you want to feel, that you're worth it, and that this universe will never stop bringing insight and understanding to you to help get you closer to the actualization and realization of that experience. And as I said last time, and I have in the opening of this book, if you knew how powerful you really are, you would never stop smiling. So remember that as you continue to go out and receive wisdom and insight. And I'm just grateful to be a part of it in this moment.
Well, audience, as always, take what you've heard and whatever resonates with you, put it into your life now. Put the rest on a shelf until you're ready to deal with it. And until next time, this has been your spiritual journey.